Welcome to The Explainer. We talk a lot about peace, but what if our whole approach to it is, well, wrong? Today, we're diving into a framework that looks past the usual political handshakes and quick-fix treaties. The sources we're digging into today see peace as something much deeper, an intentional act of restoration, like carefully rebuilding something precious that's been broken.
All right, let's get right into it. A core problem this material points to is a simple question. Why do we get complex conflicts so wrong so often? This quote from Molly Rezai really hits the nail on the head. It points to this huge gap between how the outside world sees a country and that country's own real lived history.
So what is it that we're missing? The sources argue that the real roots of conflict aren't just what you see in today's headlines about economics or politics. No, they're shaped by these deep, almost invisible forces. We're talking about culture, centuries of collective memory, and some really powerful national emotions.
It's kind of like you're reading the very last page of a long, complicated novel and then trying to explain the whole plot. When we only look at what's happening right now, we miss centuries of context. We miss the traumatic losses, the incredible cultural resilience, and this long, long memory that shapes exactly how our nation sees itself and how it defends who it is.
And this is where the stakes get incredibly high. For so many people watching their cultural heritage, we're talking poets, historical sites, the very fabric of their identity get ignored or even destroyed by their own leaders, well, it feels like a profound betrayal. It's like their power to be themselves is being stripped away, and that feeling fuels a deep, powerful demand for real, fundamental change. Okay, so if the old models are broken, what's the alternative? The sources we're looking at propose this really powerful new idea for leadership. Not a ruler, but a steward. Think of it as a caretaker, someone whose job is to restore something incredibly precious.
I absolutely love this analogy. A good restorer doesn't just slap a patch on an old, damaged tapestry, right? No way. First, they have to understand its original design, they have to know the strength of every thread, and they have to carefully, painstakingly clean away years of grime. This way of thinking frames peace not as a quick fix, but as this careful, deliberate, and deeply respectful act of restoration.
So how does a leader actually become this kind of steward? The framework suggests it requires some pretty rigorous prep work, and it's broken down into 3 key pillars. First, you need ethical clarity. Then, you need historical literacy. And finally, you have to achieve what's called narrative readiness. Let's break down what each of those really means.
So let's see how this all builds, starting with that very first pillar, the leader's own ethical core. The whole idea is, before you can even hope to restore a nation, you have to be crystal clear on what you, yourself, stand for.
The sources call this your ethical compass. It's that internal navigation system you have. When the pressure's on, when the choices are unbelievably tough, what guides your decisions? A steward has to first understand how their own compass is calibrated before they can even think about leading other people. For example, what's your gut reaction? Are you guided by a really strict sense of duty and rules, what's called a deontological view, where some things are just right or wrong, period? Or do you tend to focus more on the potential outcomes, where the ends might justify the means? That's more of a consequentialist approach. Knowing where you land on that spectrum reveals a ton about how you'll make those hard choices.
Okay, so once that ethical why is locked in, a steward has to get a real handle on the historical what and the narrative how. And this isn't just about memorizing facts and dates from a textbook. It's about truly understanding the stories that have shaped a people.
Now take a look at this timeline. It might seem like ancient history, but this period, this is where so many of the geopolitical lines and contracts we live with today were drawn. Things like the Balfour Declaration weren't just historical footnotes. They set off chain reactions that are still unfolding. A steward has to understand that legacy to have any hope of navigating the present.
And finally, we get to narrative readiness. Honestly, this is all about discipline. Can you look in the mirror and see your own blind spots and biases? Can you look at the media and instantly spot when you're being manipulated? And maybe most important of all, can you walk into a tense conversation with the goal of actually understanding the other side instead of just trying to win?
So what does this new kind of leadership actually look like when the rubber hits the road? Well, it's all about helping a people take back their own story and restore their collective power, their agency.
Check out this really powerful example from Iran, the evolution of a protest slogan. It started with Woman, Life, Freedom, which was this incredible rallying cry against oppression. But then it evolved to include Man, Homeland, Prosperity. Now, this wasn't a rejection of the original idea at all. It was an expansion. It was a way of framing the movement's goals as universal, something for everyone, encompassing national pride and a flourishing future for all.
And look at this, another incredibly powerful call, this time from within a faith community. This is a direct attempt to reclaim religion from extremists who've twisted it to justify violence. It's a declaration that's trying to restore faith to its real core principles of compassion and peace, redefining it as a source of healing, not of hate. Building on this whole idea of stewardship, one source lays out a vision for this kind of restoration that's built on these 4 pillars. You can think of it as a spiritual and a communal framework. It emphasizes mercy to heal old wounds, hope for a shared future, trust that's built on faithfulness, and agency, this powerful belief that every single person has a part to play. And this right here really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The goal isn't to force one single identity or viewpoint on everybody. It's about creating a space where diverse people with different beliefs, different backgrounds, can come together and reclaim the story they share, and then decide their own future, together. And that's the final thought we want to leave you with. Because this model of stewardship, it isn't just for presidents and prime ministers. It suggests that the real work of restoration, the hard work of building peace, starts with each of us. It starts when we have the courage to develop our own ethical clarity, our own historical literacy, and our own narrative readiness. The call really is for all of us.